This week we want to draw these two scenes at 8.5 and 11, or 9 by 12. So that's about a half a sheet of the larger marker paper, or a single sheet of the smaller tablet. I'm going to do it with my pens. I want to start and finish with pen, so I'm going to use a number 3 and a number 5. You may start with a 1 or a 2 if you like to, but this is going to make it so that you can see it a little better on the camera. So I'll start with the number 3 because I want to do some construction lines first. And basically this is a step by step by step to get up to here. So what I wanted to see is your final ending drawing. I don't want to see 4 drawings of each the same, but I want you to blow this small thing up to this size on your paper. So step 1 would be to take this sheet of paper here and to imagine this scene on it. To say there's a wheel down in the bottom. This has been X'd across here, so if we take this and we put the X of this across the page, that might help us get a good proportion started. We say what's happening in the middle? What's happening in the middle from right to left, right? So this cart comes down just a little bit from the top, so it might start maybe in here, comes up a little bit from the bottom, might come in here. That wheel looks like it's a little bit less than a third of the way over here. So I'm going to say it hits probably right down in here somewhere and is about that big. Halfway down here I think is the top of this cart, a little below the half. And these things set up on that. So notice how this is drawn just a little bit below half of that. We want to get this line set up over here where we have this cart or crate sitting over here next to it. There's a couple of crates here. On the left hand side it looks like I've got some crates set up that come about to the height of the cart or just a little bit below it, and this one's about half of that. So I've got crates here as well. This is going to be my ground line. This is going to be the end of my cart, it looks like in here. The top of my cart, I think I want to be up in here. The side and the right side. So this kind of sets me up. This drawing right here is what you see right here. So the next step is to go proportion and shape and get a little bit more detail. We work from the general to the specific, right? So we've got the basics width to height proportions, and if you need to take your pencil and do this and say the width of this is basically one of these pen caps, and the height of that is one pen cap from here to there, then you might take this and say, well, if my pen cap goes from here to there and I turn it this way and I'm a little bit longer, then I might want to make this a little bit shorter up in there so that that matches more what I'm seeing over here. All right, I'm starting to notice details. This comes up there, the wheel has a central spoke, and then these axes, it seems like there's one going vertical and one going horizontal. And then there's 2 in between each of those, so I'm going to divide that into thirds. Come across this way and divide this into thirds. So I can divide that pie up nicely. Of course, there's going to be an outside and an inside of that wheel. Not going to worry about that right now. Come up to the top of here. I see that there's a dish sitting in here, and there's one sitting here. There's something hanging off the overhanging top of this. Looks like a little house, a triangle, and then a U-shaped kind of thing, almost like a birdhouse there, right? This little guy and this guy. It looks like my proportion here is quite wide, so I'm going to skinny that down. I'm actually going to change this and put the triangle there and the circle there and allow the top of my cart to come here. I think that my proportion here, let's see, this is about 2 to 3, and this paper is probably not exactly 2 to 3, so I'm going to make it a little bit lower down here, and I think this is going to be the top line of my cart here. So even though I've changed it here, I'm not really worrying about scribbling or drawing really hard over it. I may need to come over it once or twice so that I can see and remember what I've done there. But this has some things going across here. This is my new horizontal for the roof of that. Looks like there's some plants hanging here. There's two on this side. Looks like I've got one or two in the middle. I want to block these in a little bit better. Now, I'm putting lines next to my other lines, but this is striped over here anyway, right? So it's not going to really matter if I change my mind about how big or how wide these things are going to go. But I'm looking now at the structure of the cart. And dividing this space for the door right here, let's say. My wheel seems to be a bit small. I'm going to bring my door over here. I'm going to make my wheel bigger. It's okay, I just changed it. I wasn't as careful this time about the spokes, so I'll need to correct that when I go into the heavier marker. But that's going to give me room over here to put this guy with this plate on top of it. That plate's just a little bit lower than that. And then this has something coming here with some fronds coming out of it, looks like. And I've got a trunk sitting here. Now I'm pretty confident where things go. I'm ready to switch up my pen, so I'm going to go up to my number 5 because I can draw a fairly confident line here now that says where I want these to be. So all these construction lines underneath are only adding to my drawing. It doesn't matter that I have some lines underneath here that aren't the lines I'm using. Notice how I'm making this just a little bit bigger. So I'm questioning as I go along my proportion each time I redraw it. There's no reason for me to go over this 10 times and just trace it. If the first line I made was not good or not correct, then tracing is only going to get me a confirmation of that problem. It's not going to resolve the problem for me. So every time I make a circle here, I'm seeing if I can't make it a little bit better and a little bit rounder. This horizontal I want to lock in, and this vertical. And then I took the third here and a third here and brought this straight across. A third here and here. So there's a lot going on there. I can still see this behind it, but as I draw with my thicker pen, I can really see where I want that to be. This looks like it has a little bit of a wood grain in it, so I'm going to go ahead and put some details of wood into there. And that's going to eat up some of my mistake marks, some of those things that didn't happen where I wanted them to. This has some cross contouring on it, so this at the end of the drawing, when I get down to the end of it, is going to have some lines that come in and say this bowl scoops like this. This actually scoops around and around this way, right? So all these contouring lines are helping people to understand what I'm seeing in terms of roundness of these bowls. Okay, now I have a pretty good sense of detail on here. I'm going to take my marker, my brush pen. I'm probably going to start with the pointed end of it first. I'm going to say if the light's happening from above and to the right, then everything underneath and to the left is going to be shaded. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put some pretty solid shadow lines underneath every object. And if it's not turning out hard enough, I think I'm ready to jump to my brush. So I'm going to put a pretty heavy line under here and under here. I want to put a heavy line under here for sure. I want a line under here that's going to show a shadow. Looks like the left side of this and the left side of this and the left side of this should be darkened in. So I'm checking over here for cues to that. The left side of this guy and the underside of it. The left side of this. Now under here I don't want a really heavy line, so I'm going to do a pointed line just to draw the bottom of these guys. I think this should be pretty heavy on the left, and this on the left, and this on the left, and this on the left. Then maybe the straps of these crates, I could put a little bit heavier line underneath each of those to sort of bring those out. This handle I want to stand up a bit. But I'm going to put more lines over here where I think the shadow is to sort of fill in shadow lines. On the left sides of my objects. I'm going to come probably down the left side of whatever these are, these little vegetable-y things. Here I'm going to be a lot more loose with it. So I'm sort of just going in and putting dots and dashes in there as I draw, because I don't want to trace. I want to add to my drawing, right? And these kind of places are where you can go loosely to create an effect. These guys in here are quite dark. And this is all in shadow underneath here actually, because this top thing is casting a shadow on that. So I'm going to go ahead with a heavy line there. It's starting to come together. I could do the left side of this board right here. And maybe I don't do the whole line. Maybe I start at the top and shoot towards the bottom, and start at the bottom and shoot towards the top, and call that good. Down under here there's a few lines because this is dark, and that makes that jump up. I want these to be more plant-like, so I sort of loosened those up and drew more lightly. I want to solidify these on the ground, so I'm going to go ahead and put a mark there. This has a full ground line across all the way, which really places these objects all on a solid ground. This wheel, if the light comes from this direction, then it's going to shade the underside of this curve. And I'm not tracing again, I'm making a better circle in there. It's going to shade the underside of this curve. It's going to shade the inside or the back side of this here. And then I might want to go the left side of these wheels and the underside. These two I'm not going to put anything on because the light seems to be hitting from that direction. They're kind of pointing right at the light. This one I could probably go underneath a little bit. And put a little line under that to sort of ground it. Now, if I want to go back to my pen and say I need some more lines because my lines got eaten up by that brush mark, or something happened that was too heavy down in there and made it so that my nuances of line are not seen, I can go back into this now and I can still come in here and put some details if I want to make this look a little bit more interesting as we go. Okay, so there's one of those. The other half of your sheet should have this drawing on it here, but blown up to fill half size.